one that has our little, oh, there we go. There's our beautiful little, not Chirons, but whatever they are. Anyway, I'm Christine Gritman, and my guest this week is Elizabeth Finkelstein of Circa and Cheap Old Houses and various other things. So
yes.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm also streaming this live on Cheap Old Houses. Hi. So for anyone who is new here, I'm here with Christine Gritman, and we will be speaking all things Instagram.
Yes, we will.
And marketing, yeah.
So I'm also excited because I'm using a brand new setup right now. I just switched to Ecamm from BeLive a couple weeks ago, I guess. And this is the first time I'm using my DSLR and my Yeti microphone. So people can just let us know if they can hear us or if they can't hear us, especially. Just give us a shout out. And on Instagram, you can, of course, hear us because, you know, Instagram. So let me just check to make sure this is happening. But in the meantime, Elizabeth, tell everyone about Circa.
All right. So Circa is a website that I started back in 2012 that we call an online marketplace featuring, it's sort of a curated online marketplace featuring the most beautiful historical homes for sale all across the country.
And now you have a background. You're not just an Instagrammer here. You have an actual background in historical preservation. You know wherever you speak.
Right. Instagram is sort of what I came into through my interest, which is historic preservation. I am trained. I have a graduate degree in historic preservation, and I come from kind of a nerdy background. I'm a little bit of an architecture geek. So found myself in the cool world of social media kind of through that, which is funny. But now, I mean, I spend so much time on social media that I've figured a lot of it out. So I'm actually finding it really fun, and it's been so amazing and effective for business.
And I'm sure it has changed so much in the years since you started Circa. Like, to be clear, Circa is not just an Instagram, you guys. It's like a whole website. It's an online magazine. It is searchable for houses.
You know, and we launched Circa very heavily through social media. We knew from the get-go that we were going to make social media sort of the way that we got this out to the world.
Hashtag house porn. There's a lot of that.
And then Cheap Old Houses, which is my sort of viral Instagram feed, kind of came in through that. We found that actually we were getting so much traffic through social to Circa that I thought I need to kind of have a way to sort of like just make these social feeds kind of live on their own. And I needed for lack of a better term, like dumping ground for all of the beautiful fixer-uppers I was finding. So I started that feed as a way to do that.
So now how do they relate exactly? Is Cheap Old Houses primarily an Instagram feed, but it leads people to the main Circa website, to these listings?
They work a little bit differently. So the way Circa works, the business model is these are paid for by real estate agents looking to promote their properties. You know, I can give you a little background on how I started Circa. I grew up in an old house that my parents restored from top to bottom. And I mean, it was such a project that I like to say, they always tell the story that they were the only people that would get out of the car to look at it when the real estate agent showed it to them. That's what he told them. And it was really a fixer-upper. And so I grew up in this house that was always being worked on by my parents. And when they went to sell the house, the appraiser came and he was like, well, there's no finished basement and there's no master bathroom and there's like... There are none of these things that people want in modern houses. And my mom was like, yes, but this is like a museum piece. Exactly. Yeah. And there was no way to quantify that. So it, you know, I felt like the agent did a really good job at talking about the history of the house, but he didn't have a mailing list at his disposal of people who specifically looking for this.
Yes.
And so my mission behind Circa was to gather those people because I'm like, I know that there are these people out there. Like old house people really are crazy, right? Like we're crazy in the best way. By the way, I'm in Christine's new house.
Yes.
And it's a Victorian with a lot of great woodwork.
It's 121 years old. We're in the attic right now. There's some ghosts up here.
But here we are. And so I started this basically to call together this mailing list of people who would see a listing for an old house and not say, oh, look at all the work that needs, but be like, ooh, look at all the work that needs. Like someone who wanted to work on it. And so that's how I started Circa, really.
I love that. So now, Cheap Old Houses, that developed, is it?
So I started a column on Circa called 10 under 50K, where I would find every month 10 houses for sale, right?
Lordy.
And none of them are in Nyack.
We're here in the New York metro area, and under 50K will get you, like, nothing. Like,
no.
Not even like a mobile home or something. Like, nothing.
No, it's very true. And I think this is one of the reasons why I love running this feed so much, because I just live vicariously through all the houses. I mean, Ethan and I visited a historic district. Ethan is my husband. We visited a historic district in Danville, Virginia over the weekend. And we literally, for the price of our little house in Nyack, could have bought the entire historic district. And I was like, what are we doing? And they were amazing, amazing houses. So I started this column on Circa called 10 under 50K. And it was every week, it was a roundup of 10 houses for sale for under $50,000. But not just any house. They were amazing houses where you'd walk in and you could
curated.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so I started this, and that was the most viral thing on Circa. It went viral every month. And then I started writing like 25 under 50K. And then like 50, and I would get so many houses, and people started sending me these houses. And I'm like, I felt like this personal responsibility to save these houses. Because I'm like, I have them all, and they can't just sit here in my inbox. So I started that feed to share them with the world. And it instantly took off, and it quickly surpassed Circa's own following. So it's been a fun way, honestly, to sort of drive traffic back and forth between Circa and cheap old houses. They're both for old house lovers, but I think they maybe tap into a little bit different audiences. They do. For sure. So. Yeah,
the people who are into the challenge and the creativity involved in restoration, the people who see the stuff that's run down and want to cry.
Yeah.
As opposed to some of the houses on Circa, I mean, they're lovely, but they've been restored.
Right.
Whereas cheap old houses, they likely have not.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Circa kind of runs the gamut. There are definitely fixer-uppers on Circa, but there are also beautiful luxury homes, which I love too. Don't get me wrong.
So I love that you created an Instagram specifically for a niche to drive traffic to something that was successful. That's really smart to take something that's happening in your business and bring it to social media as opposed to just having social. It's a nice little cyclical thing there. Now you have other accounts too. And the thing I'm really fascinated about is that you have a closed one for Patreon people, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Something like that? I want to hear about that. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. So I have been trying to. I spend so much time on cheap old houses, finding these homes because I love it so much.
Do like seriously, you guys check it out. It will make you want to cry. It's amazing.
Right. So, I decided that I firmly believe that even if you're doing something good for the world that can be seen as charitable, you should still make a good living doing it.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I proudly put it out there that I do make a good living doing what I do, because I want more people to do good things for the world and follow suit and learn how to make money doing it. So
also, this is not a hobby. This is your job.
This is my
your
full-time
company,
job.
And it's not a freaking hobby.
Yeah. And the fact that it's good for the world just makes me all the more happy.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, it is my job. And I mean, I couldn't do anything that wasn't good for the world. It's kind of like I'm like an idealist. So
a mission-driven business. And a passion-driven business.
Mission-driven businesses. Yeah.
Love
I feel like there need to be more models out there of people doing mission-driven businesses that aren't nonprofits. Because I come from the nonprofit world and I love the nonprofit world, but it's incredibly important to me that I'm able to feed my family and make a living doing what I love.
Absolutely.
And to me, there's a really fun freedom in owning your own business and being able to make decisions and make partnerships just on your own because you think they'd be great and fun. Absolutely. And some of the most successful partnerships I've done have been ones that are just like, yeah, we should just like, this doesn't seem to make sense up front, but like, let's partner and see where it goes. And so that's always really fun.
So let's go to the Patreon or Patreon.
Patreon. I think it's Patreon.
I think it's Patreon
because it's like a play on patron. Yeah. I think it's Patreon. Essentially, I started for those of you who aren't familiar with Patreon is a place where artists can go to either sell subscription services or sort of other ways to make money. And a lot of people who do podcasts do this. You should be doing this.
I know.
It's been great. It's
maybe
been
for season 4. Like I'm taking August off and starting season 4 in September, so I'm thinking of all sorts of fun things to do with that.
Yeah. And just for my cheap old houses audience, for those of you who don't know Christine, she is a social media consultant and does amazing work helping small businesses and brands build up their initial followings. And honestly, keep it going after that. So. Absolutely, she's a person you should certainly reach out to if you're interested in that.
And eventually I'll be launching. I have an Instagram, the Nyack House, that will eventually also be a blog. I've owned the domain for a year. And I just fight with WordPress. Right. But the Nyack House also is like old pretty houses and this old pretty house and Nyack, rah, rah, rah. and Hudson
Yeah.
Valley rah rah. So that's
We have a lot of pride
that's
in where we
probably
live.
more relevant to your life.
Yeah.
But it's not as like content rich as Christine Rubinick.
Right. But Christine does this great thing. I love the thing you do where it's your midweek minute where she gives you a whole rundown in 1 minute of all the sort of different things that the different social media platforms are working on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great little just digestible bit of information. Like Twitter's rolling this out, Facebook is rolling this out, Instagram's rolling this out, and it just helps.
And
you
at
really
the end,
kind
I
of
want to
keep us
talk to you
up.
about some of the new stuff Instagram's rolling out too. But first, so the Patreon. So let's
We're gonna get through Patreon. Okay.
eventually.
So Patreon. So what I did is I decided I would offer an additional cheap old house to anyone who would join my Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
Join my Patreon, I guess, subscription group.
Yeah.
And it's $2 a month to join, and you get access. It's $2 a month. That's
oh my
it.
God. Okay.
And then you can access. Every weekday I post an additional cheap old house on my cheap old houses secret feed. You know, I had when Instagram rolled out close friends.
Yeah.
I was really interested in that, and I first started it as my close friends group, but.
Yeah.
I found it a little difficult. Then I had to post it in my stories only because close friends is only stories, right?
Interesting.
Still.
I haven't been using the close friends feature.
I found it a little tough to manage because then I had to. I think we're paused due to poor connection over on cheap old houses, but that's okay. It'll come back. I think I found it a little tough to manage. I had to kind of be constantly going through multiple steps to get to the close friends thing, and then
now, to be clear, so you're a public feed. But you can designate close friends, and some content is only visible by close friends?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Oh, you're getting a call, that's why.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that's
fine.
Ethan calling me. Ethan's probably letting me
Hi,
know that
Ethan.
it's the connection is lost, but that's okay. I'll pick up later.
Thanks, Ethan.
I think, so that's basically what the close friends list is on Instagram. So it is a public feed, but only certain close friends can see things.
That is good to know.
Yeah. So what I did is I started an entirely separate feed that's a private feed and moved everybody over to that. And that's been working great because the listings live on more than a day. Whereas if I did it in my close friends stories, it would disappear.
Now, do you have to manually add people to that? Do you tell people, hey, request to follow it?
You
and
have to
if your
request to
email
follow it.
matches up, do you have to manually match up their email?
I do.
Oh,
and a lot of
wow.
times it's easy, but there are some cases where someone's Instagram handle is different than their email, and it's like a little bit tough that way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's tricky.
So.
But that's great. So how many people are on that feed right now? It
I
varies, I'm
have
sure.
between 300 and 400.
Okay.
About.
So it's
I've been doing it a
intimate.
few months. It's intimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun. Yeah.
Are they engaging more on that because they're specifically opting into this like small group, or is the engagement?
There is engagement. I would say there's still more engagement on my primary feed. I think I'm not sure how Instagram's algorithm works, but it seems to me that those are getting pushed higher because there's more people following. There are naturally more comments.
Yeah.
And so those get pushed higher.
Yeah.
And I think that too, and again, you might know more about this than I do, but because I'm actually curious about how this is working, because I think if things get shared as well, Instagram probably pushes them higher, and maybe because it's a private feed, they can't be shared as much.
And it's really hard because sharing on Instagram is hard because they still don't have a native tool for sharing, which is insane to me. You can share a feed post to stories, and you can send a feed post to someone, and you can send a story to someone,
right.
but you still need an outside app to really regram something, which is very, very annoying. Something I'm really shocked they haven't fixed yet. That would be nice.
Right.
So anyway, so that's really cool that you have a whole separate thing there. Do you do content differently for the private one versus the public ones? Or is it just more of the same content?
It's more of the same content. I try not to only give the best ones to the private feed. I try to kind of space it out a little bit. So.
That's smart.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
smart,
want people...
Because you want people to want to join.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, that's what's going on with that.
Nice.
It's fun.
How have you been using stories?
I don't know that I have any sort of special advice for stories. I use it just... A lot of times I use it for houses that don't necessarily fit the cheap old houses sort of exact model. So most of the houses I post on cheap old houses are for sale for under $100,000. And then occasionally I have a category that's save this house, which would be for more of an expensive house that's like an amazing fixer-upper, but maybe in a place like California where houses are just not for sale for under $50,000 or for under $100,000.
Yeah.
So I'll post that under save this house. But stories sometimes people send me houses that are like $200,000
Mm-hmm.
and they're like not crazy amazing fixer-uppers, but they still might have like an original basement bar that I think is really cool, or like something really fun.
They made the cut. Something sparks something.
There's something interesting about them. And so I use stories a lot to kind of put those houses in that wouldn't fit on my feed, but like might be a really good outlet. So.
I like that. And what about like house tours and things? Like, how have you been using video? Because I know you've been doing a little bit more of that. It kind of comes and goes because you're busy. You have stuff, you know. But I know that you and Ethan have done some video content. Mm-hmm. So how have you been using video content on Instagram or even just on the blog?
Last weekend we were in Danville, Virginia, touring around this amazing historic district, and that there's a preservation group there that has been working very hard to market their historic district, the Old West End Historic District in Danville, Virginia, and they're doing amazing things. I mean, for this little neighborhood group, like they've gotten national exposure in there. They're incredible, and all the houses are for sale for like under like $20,000. Like nothing is over. It is you cannot believe the wealth of amazing.
Everybody
things.
Move to Danville now. Oh, that's nuts.
It's awesome. And so when we were there, I was walking through the houses and doing videos there. You know, most of these houses are far away, so I don't get to do as much of that as I'd like to.
Of course.
But my husband runs Color and Information, which is a boutique digital design agency, and they do a lot of film work as well. So
I'm going to have him on one of these days, too, because I
need to come on.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I do the content for Circa, but, like, he is the total business brains and technical brains behind all of this. And if it weren't for him, I'd be volunteering my life away. He's really good at like taking an idealistic person like me and making it into like a brand that can actually function in the world.
That's another reason I know
Thank
to
you,
talk to
Ethan.
him.
He just kind of thinks like this, and it's really great for me to live with because he has a very good mind like that.
Yeah.
And I don't always. I get very like excited about the cause and stuff. So I guess we make a really good team.
Yes.
But so I do come with a video team behind me, which is super helpful. And so we do have the capability to go into houses and do video tours. And it's something that on Circa, we've been really trying to think about how to market as a service. Because I think that, you know, real estate video has to come a long way. A lot of real estate videos are like virtual tours, which are like, so it's either a drone video usually that they show, or it's like a
fisheye, weird, like pixelated.
Or just like a slideshow of the photos, like moving in and out and like funny effects. Which is fine.
It's like, it's not a video, guys. It's a slideshow.
Right, exactly.
There's a difference.
So I think that there has to be a sort of a new way to present video in real estate, and that's something we're working on trying to do. So if anyone out there wants us to do video for them for real estate, call me.
I love that, and that's really smart because that really does help sell things. Which actually brings me to another question, which is, have you noticed, well, I mean, I'm sure you have because you study these things. What type of posts have really been killing it for you, and what types of posts have you been like, we're going to stop doing that type of post?
Posts on
social media in general. Maybe it differs between platforms, but I think Instagram in particular, I guess.
So, you know, some people say, like, how did you build such a big following?
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think there's two ways I've done it. One, I've just been doing it a really long time, and I think I was one of the first people to tap into the old house real estate market. And I've just kept at it, and I keep producing content. And the other thing is, I think at the end of the day, content is king.
Yes.
Right? Like, you can try all these sort of schemes to get more followers, but really at the end of the day, what you're giving out, if what you're giving is well received, it will do well.
Yeah.
And I think doing this for so long, I have a really good sense of what my audience wants.
Yeah. And what do they want?
They want houses in original condition, even if it's not perfectly preserved. They don't want to see something that's been gutted and whitewashed and like looks like sort of anything that would be like.
They don't want an open concept Victorian.
No, they want something different. They want something unique, and they want something with character. And they're not afraid to use their. You know how you watch House Hunters, and the couple walks in, and they're like, "Well, I don't like the color
on the wall." Yeah,
and you're like, "Really? Like you cannot see past that? My audience can see past that.
Yes,
for sure.
And that is hugely important with old houses, for sure.
Yeah. And it's funny because on cheap old houses, I have like a lot of wealthy people follow this. I mean, these are houses for sale for under $100,000.
Yeah,
and like.
But they have the money to renovate.
Right, I have, but they're all they're either actors or artists, or and they're big in what they do and they have a lot of money, but I think they're all people with vision.
Yes.
It's not about the money, it's about seeing life from a creative perspective.
And that could be part of why they have money, in all honesty.
True. Yeah,
they're able to see possibilities.
Yeah, that's so true.
I love that. I keep saying about this house, I used to write about houses for our local paper and a couple other things, and I keep saying that I used to go to those old houses, and then I'd come back to my own house, not this house, but my previous house, and I'd feel like crap. I'd be like, oh, this is no character, it's tiny, it's terrible. This house, now I see other gorgeous old houses, and I come back to this house, and I'm just like, oh, if I had the money to do this, that, or the other thing, if I win the lottery, I'm not moving, I'm renovating. And it feels really good to feel that because I'm not going to find this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to find this. I have to give Elizabeth the tour after this. You're one of the people I was most excited to show my house to. Okay, so another thing that I'm very curious about is what really has been driving traffic to you? Because the fact is, it's one thing to get a lot of engagement on Instagram, but ultimately you want traffic to your website, right? That's really what you...
Right.
So what has been what tends to drive traffic?
SEO. Ethan helps me a lot with that. We're very good
and
at
as part of that with Instagram
keywords.
hashtags and stuff?
It's funny, I don't use too many Instagram hashtags. I do often on Circa, but I don't know if Instagram hashtags have been as effective for me. And you know, I'm not going to say that that's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But for me, it's really the visuals and giving... once we started doing galleries on Instagram, actually, I think that just... Instead of... We used to just want the click-throughs to the website. And we were like, we have to just get the picture up so people click through to the website. But Instagram is not great with click-throughs. And even if you do link in bio or Linktree or... honestly,
landing page or anything.
A landing page, whatever, it's still sort of an extra step for people, and people like to just scroll on their Instagram feed.
I like that.
So we have found it's more effective to get people hooked on your Instagram feed, even if they're not clicking through to your site, because ultimately you're building up numbers and you're building up a following, and eventually over time you will get those numbers that enough people will still be clicking through to your website. So once we sort of discovered that we should stop trying just to get people to click through everything they do, it was really helpful for us. I think it really helped increase our followers because they love the content. They love that they can swipe through all the photos and actually see things. I think people are more and more living on the platforms themselves.
Yes, they are.
And less going to homepages.
And the platform algorithms are also really encouraging people to stay on the platform. So if you are creating content that is keeping people on the platform instead of focusing exclusively on it as a lead magnet, it is going to do better in the algorithm as well, because that is what the algorithms want. They want people on their platform. If they see that people are thumbing through your galleries as opposed to just seeing the first one and scrolling along, that is informing the algorithm, which is fantastic. Do you ever do any Instagram advertising, or do you not even have to?
We used to do a lot of Facebook advertising, and it ultimately became less and less effective. Facebook has really become less effective for us. I found that they've changed their algorithm so much that people seem to be just not engaging as much. I mean, I used to post something and it would get hundreds of comments, and now it doesn't get as many on Facebook. We're still using Facebook, but I'm not giving Facebook all my money anymore. That's where we are. Instagram seems to, for me, I think what we do with Instagram fits exactly what Instagram wants.
It really is.
And so it seems to be that it's really working. It's so visual.
Yes.
And we're keeping people on the post for a long time because they're swiping through the photos.
And it's a place where people are there to indulge in their passions, their visual passions in particular. Do you use Pinterest at all for this, or not really?
We do have a Pinterest page, but to be honest, I don't focus on it as heavily as I do. But we do get a lot of click-throughs from Pinterest for sure. So we do keep pinning things. Instagram is really what we found fits, and I think my audience, most of if you were to sort of, the demographic of people who follow me are really addicted to Instagram, which is amazing.
Old House Instagram is a fun place. I've been spending more time there.
It's super scary. I'm like, oh, I'm like following these I don't even know these people, and I'm like, I love what they did with there, and I'm like,
always.
I know that.
Always. I feel like I know these people. It's one of those. Absolutely.
Totally.
Okay, so you have also gotten a lot of press, a lot of mainstream press. You were featured in Time Magazine, all these cool things.
Yeah.
So what have you done that you feel like has gotten that interest there? Have they told you, have any of these the most major publications you've been featured in, have any of them specifically said, hey, we found you because of this?
I'm trying to think.
It's all brand building ultimately, and it's hard to know the ROI of social media exactly because so much of it is you're building your brand out there. You're building that know, like, and trust factor. So it's hard to point to one thing. I was just curious if anyone had mentioned anything.
I have a lot of people who follow me who live in New York City, and I think there's a reason for that.
Yes.
Everyone's like, but I could buy this fixer-upper in Indiana, and it's on 60 acres, and it's like $40,000.
The bathroom is twice the size of my apartment.
Like, what am I doing? And they're usually looking at it, you know, from their cubicle, and it's just like soul-sucking, and but they're addicted to New York, and they can't really leave it, and I get that, because I'm also addicted to New York.
Yes.
So it's just that, like, escapism thing it taps into. And I think, so a lot of the journalists that have written about me live in New York, and I think I'm just tapping into that sentiment so incredibly well. I think there's something going on right now in the world. I think people feel that life is very expensive, that they just can't frankly afford real estate. Yeah. And I think that we're also we're a very design savvy world right now. We have access to, you know, it's not like once a month like a design publication comes out anymore.
We have Instagram.
Every day we can like look at Pinterest and Instagram and like see everything all the time. And trends move so quickly.
They do.
And we are feeling, you know, we're sitting at computers all day and we want to work with our hands. And all these things converging just make that escapism so attractive.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. And also the fact that this type of house is the old-fashioned architecture, those details, they're in again. Because I know like 70s and 80s were a rough time. Like so many Victorians and things got just covered in paneling and wall-to-wall carpeting. And there are a lot of houses out there, and I'm sure you've seen this because we've seen a lot of this on the houses you cover. A lot of times you'll have a house with all sorts of gorgeous original details, and then the kitchen will be straight up 1973. You know? And that's always rough. So it's nice that this stuff is kind of in again.
Yeah. I mean, kitchens and bathrooms, I think this is why I'm so interested in them. They're the most flipped things all the time. And so if you see one that's original, it's like super exciting. And it's funny where you mentioned the sort of 1973 thing. What's cool about that era is like, yeah, they put a shag carpet in and yeah, they put paneling on the wall, but they didn't gut the house. I think worse is too much money. Yeah. Worse is when people come in and they're like, and then, you know, you get every 5 years, they just got
every trend. They want to keep on top of the trend. They want to keep their house on trend. And that means that you lose those things. One thing that was really lucky about the house that I found is that it was always in the hands of just kind of normal families. In fact, a lot of those families even wound up having boarders and stuff. This house has been a multifamily at a few different times, and it's not that huge. So, you know, so I think that that was a salvation for this house because it didn't have anybody who bought it as an investment property. It didn't have anybody who said, you know what, I'm going to take this as a project. I feel like the people who lived in this house over the past 121 years just lived here. And that's why they didn't screw up the woodwork. You know?
I feel like that about most of the houses. I grew up in upstate New York, and it's funny. So many people lived in old houses, and they didn't really think of, like, now I would go into their house.
It was just a house.
It was just where they lived because that was what was there. You know, and I didn't grow up in a place where people had so much money that they could constantly be tearing things down and building McMansions. They all just like lived in the farmhouse that their grandmother grew up in, and it just kind of got passed down, and they're living there. And you know, I don't know that people have the appreciation that I have now that I've been to historic preservation school, and I'm looking back at it kind of from a different perspective.
Yeah, this house hadn't been on the market since 1945.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, and I believe that the Bryants who bought it in 1945, they bought it as just a house. And I believe that their son, George, who moved in when he was 6 and died here a couple years ago in his 70s, appreciated it more and more. Like, I think by the end of his life, he knew how special this house was. Yeah. But at the same time, he thankfully didn't care to do anything to it, which I'm so grateful for. Thank you, George. Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
We are in the attic. So.
This is a great attic.
Yeah, I love this attic. So I haven't seen any comments or anything come through, so I'm kind of wondering about this, but whatever.
Ethan did call, so I'm wondering.
He did call.
Should I see if he left me a message?
Sure, we're going to see if Ethan left a message. But in the meantime, I'm going to remind everyone that they should follow Elizabeth at Circa. It's Circa
He says also Facebook live feed is not on for me.
Oh, that's not good. All right, well, we'll figure it out.
We can do it again. Maybe.
It is live. It's just not live at the link that it was, I guess, maybe.
Okay.
Is this not doing? Oh yeah, it is. Anyway, I think Ecamm. I'm having an adjustment with Ecamm right now. I will learn Ecamm because it's a great program. To that end, what if anything is a content type, or especially a social media generated content type, that you maybe haven't explored that you're considering, or what have you done and tried that you're like, no, that's a weirdly phrased
Twitter.
Twitter.
I don't use.
It's not a place for Twitter.
Twitter is not my thing.
No.
We tried it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
with Twitter you communicate information, and I feel like with you it's
too
more
visual.
It has to be more about the emotion, the immediate visual emotional connection, rather than the verbal connection. And even though Twitter, you can do video, you can do visuals, that's not what grabs you first with Twitter. Yeah.
You know, I think that we used to live in a time where people would own a business and be like, I have to be on all the platforms.
Oh yeah, and that's going away.
And I don't think you have to be on all the platforms.
No, you don't.
I think you need to be on a platform, because I think social media is how you engage with your audience.
It is.
Now in today's world. But you don't have to be on all of them.
Yeah.
And once you kind of drop that and feel like, okay, what is the best one for me? You have to just build a mailing list, whether it's through email, whether it's through a social platform, whatever. You have to have a way to engage with your people. And it doesn't have to be on all of them. And my feeling is to have a Twitter feed that I haven't posted on since 2013, and then someone goes to it and like it makes me look worse than just not even having it, right? So I've kind of given up on Twitter and just decided, like, I'm going to just do what's working for me.
That works, and that's very smart. My friends Andrew and Pete at Social Media Marketing World, their whole keynote was saying, you know, it's about what they call the 90-10 rule. They said instead of trying to do everything, figure out one thing you really want to get great at, and put 90% of your energy towards getting as good as you can at that thing. Which is why I'm playing with all these crazy video tools, because I want to get really good at video. But because I'm like, okay, that's got to be my 90, and I've been half-assing it.
Yeah.
But that's really key. At the beginning, it was like you got to be in all the places because you never know where somebody's going to find you. And now it's like, not really. Like, your people are already somewhere. Right. Your people are already on Instagram. You don't need the Twitter people to find you, because if they're your people, they're also on Instagram.
Yeah, and I think if you're trying to do too much as a small business owner, you're just going to dilute everything, and you're not going to be doing everything well. It's more important for me to post 8 times on Instagram to my audience that's there than to just basically get one post in on Instagram. And also, I think you have to cater what you're doing to each of those platforms, because they're not all the same.
Do not auto post from your Instagram to everywhere.
No, it's the worst thing you can do. They're different platforms, they're used differently, and do 1 or 2 really well, and don't worry if you don't get the others right, because if you just cross post everything, if people feel like they're seeing exactly what they're seeing on your Instagram feed in your email, you're just cluttering up their life. So
one last thing I want to ask you is, you're mentioning email, and it is really important to have an email list, because you don't own the social media platforms, right? Your Instagram followers, Instagram could take them all away tomorrow.
Right.
So how do you use social media to get people onto your email list?
So, well, there is something on our website. When you go to our website and you spend a certain amount of time on our website, there is a pop-up that says you can enter your email address there. So
it's smart that it happens after a certain amount of time. It's not smacking them in the face when they get there. It's confirming that they are engaged first. That's very smart.
Yeah, and they're the kind of person, and I think that's really frustrating. A lot of people maybe just want to click through and see what we've just posted on Facebook. And if they can't do that, they're going to stop clicking through. So if they feel like, exactly. They're the people I want, because they're the people that are going to be really engaged. I'm trying to think if there are other specific ways on. Ethan's probably like, you know all the ways. And
have you done any sort of like contest or giveaway or like joint promotion or anything like that has driven traffic with an idea towards getting emails, or not really?
Not specifically towards getting emails, but there are a lot of things I've done to build my audience that don't require paying.
That's really key for all of us. Okay, listen up, guys.
Okay. Well, I read this great article, and I'm like, why didn't I think of this? For instance, I was at a co-working space in Manhattan last week, and I met someone next to me who was starting a small business, and he had 100 and some odd followers, and it was like a listing site like I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I went to an influencer conference, and someone wanted to pay me $10,000, wanted me to pay them $10,000 to shout them out. So a few of the things I did, I think, look for other people that have the same following that you do, And write to them and be like, you want to do a mutual shout out?
Mm-hmm.
You shout me out, I'll shout you out.
By same following, do you just mean audience type, or do you also mean they're at similar levels?
Similar levels.
Yeah, because then it's mutually beneficial.
Exactly.
If I said to you, let's do a joint thing, you'd be like, I have like 10,000 times more followers. I mean, it would be a little different. You know,
right.
So that's really smart. So take someone who's in a similar space and you can offer value to each other.
Exactly. I think it's, it's not that I don't want to shout a lot of people out, but you can imagine the number of requests I get to do that.
You have to be selective.
So I have to be super selective.
Your curation is your brand.
Exactly.
And that's key to remember too. Your curation is your brand. You have your audience's trust.
Right.
Use it.
But if you're a house site, there are a lot of other house sites out there.
Yeah.
And I do not believe in being, what's the word?
It's not a zero-sum game. There's enough out there for everyone.
Exactly, exactly. That word starts with a P. Anyway, I think if you...
Oh, my computer's about to die soon. Sorry.
Let's go ahead. I think that proprietary. Thank you.
Yes.
No, it's important. Work with other people. Support each other. That's really, really important. Mm-hmm. But yeah, do a mutual shout out for shout out. You have nothing to lose. If someone else has 5,000 followers and you have 5,000, that's great. Yeah. And if you have similar audiences, and then you'll just keep building up from there. I don't think that you have to spend a lot of money to think of little ways to promote yourself.
I love that. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to say about Instagram, social media in general, brand building? Any last thoughts?
Oh my gosh,
there's so many thoughts.
I think if you love something deeply, you are not the only one who loves it, and just keep putting it out there. I found that the ones who are most successful just keep at it. They just don't quit. I mean, we all know those feeds that have been up for 7 months, and then they realize they've done too much. They tried too hard. Just keep with consistency. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it.
I love that, and that's also
and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yes, because that's how you get user data. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The more you put out there, that's user data you're getting back. What works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you,
this
Christine.
has been Elizabeth Finkelstein of Circa Houses, Circa Old Houses.
Circa Old Houses is the domain. Circa Houses is our social handle.
Fantastic.
And then Cheap Old Houses is our other Instagram social handle, which we also have a Facebook page for.
Yeah. They're super addictive, and I highly recommend getting addicted to them because they're fabulous. All right. Thanks so much. And I don't know where the little intro video went, but that's okay. No, we can't. All right. Bye.
Bye.